So I was thinking earlier about I get really deep into thought. I'm just a deep thinker in general. And I was thinking like about my consciousness, and I've thought about this all my life really, but the idea of death used to terrify me greatly. Um I think because I do think of it from a different perspective than most people. And I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, like it's easy to really go, God created humanity and life exists, and it's like, okay, you look around and it's like, okay, there's a bunch of people and they live, and it's like, okay, but you leave it at that. It's like, okay, that's fine. It's an easy concept to grasp, but it's like when you really think about you as a person, and it's like you're you, and the only person that can be you is you. And like I look around, it's like I've always kind of like, after a while, I started thinking of myself as like the main character in a video game, and everybody else is an NPC. For all I know, everybody else is fake and programs. For all I know, we're in the Matrix, and I'm the guy that's being put there. But of course, there's so many layers to why that couldn't really be a thing, and yada yada yada. Like either way, you live. Either way, you're alive, and you're you, and your conscience. And so I've just like, it's one of those things that I can't really talk about, because it's just like it's hard to really put into words and truly deep dive into what I'm thinking. But basically the best way to describe it is, the reason why death terrifies me is because what is life without me? And I'm talking about from my perspective. And I'm like, life does not matter unless I observe it. Like nothing matters. Like there could be like 1,000 wars, everybody dies, but if I'm not there around, it's like, then it's like other people exist, but they're not me. And it's like, what is the world without my perspective? So when I die, like let's say the idea of like no afterlife, which I do believe in the afterlife, because I just believe I'm always going to be a conscience. But I'm thinking to myself, imagine your conscience just being cut. Like even when you're asleep, you're still dreaming. You're still, in some kind of like realm. So you're never truly unconscious. Well, maybe when you're put to sleep, maybe. But I think that's still sleep, I guess. Knocked out, probably asleep, I guess. I don't know. I've never been knocked out before. I don't even think I've ever been put to sleep. I'm not sure. At least not as an adult, or even a kid, or a kid where I remember. But yeah, so that's just one of those things I always struggled with thinking about. It's just like, how can we go on living? Or how can we go on as where I don't exist? And it's just like, that's why I don't believe that I'm ever going to die. Like even when, like, we will die from this world as humans in this body. That is one reason why I went from being religious or non-religious or atheist to agnostic. That is one of the main reasons. It's because I cannot concept, like, science does not at all explain the conscience. It doesn't explain life. Like, it's just like it's created randomly. It's like, okay, like why would it just create this deep, true, complex, soul-like thing just from just from a mix of chemicals and stuff? Big Bang. It's like, where did the Big Bang come from? And I think I've already made a video on the subject. It's like the beginning of life doesn't make any sense, right? Why? Because it's like, okay, for people that only believe in science, it's like, okay, this led to this, that led to this, that led to this, right? But how did the first thing get there in the first place, right? How, and explain how that first thing was always here. And I'm like, it reminds me of the Scary Movie where there's like, you know, the black guy, Anthony Henderson and Kevin Hart. And then it was like, you know, they'll be like, how did the mouse become a rat and the rat become a mouse? And he's like, whoa, that's some deep shit right there. You know, it's like, that's kind of how I get to these things where I'm like fascinated. Not enough people really talk about a lot of this stuff, but you know, people just like, okay, the beginning of life is the Big Bang, or God created everybody, yada yada yada, and it's like, okay, and then they say God was always here, and then brush it off, and nobody really thinks about how is that possible to have a conscience. Like, imagine you always being here. Just think about that. Now, a lot of people simply just like let go and just like, okay, we don't know. This it's a different realm. Heaven and God is a different thing entirely. Time doesn't work like it does there. Some people, you know, that's the way people just kind of like brush it off, you know, and you can't really explain it. I mean, that's all you can do really, is just brush it off. But it's like, I'm kind of like, is that even possible to have time not exist? Like, how would that be? I mean, I guess we won't know until we get there, right? You know, it's like, how can you have it to where you're always here and you're always, you know, a being of internalness, you know? Like, I know God, you know, we're not God, so we can't understand it, but it's like, as a concept, you know, it's like, how? It's like, can we get a little explanation of like a theory or something? But I guess not. I mean, that's just the thing. We can't explain it. We'll never be able to understand it. And that is why I don't believe in science. I don't believe that science is the answer for everything. Like, I believe science explains how the things that's already here, that's already, you know, has a reason for growth. Like, you know, the foundations are already there, but they're created. You know, everything has a duty. Everything has a, you know, something to where it's like, okay, if this happens, cause and effect, right? But the cause was created. You know, and it's like, you can't explain God. You can't explain how life got here in the first place, truly, because, you know, it's like, we all started from nothing, from a little mass or something like that, or whatever, like a little thing of matter, or black matter. I don't know what, because I haven't truly gotten into every point of video. Like, I haven't watched everything on the beginning of life, of course, but it's like, and then the explosion in the universe gets created, and it's like, okay, a bunch of stars came out, you know, out of nowhere, or not out of nowhere, but you know what I mean, out of the explosion, and the universe is like pretty much never ending, or it is never ending. I'm not sure if it's, you know, but it's like, even if it wasn't never ending, what is it going to run into a wall or something? Like where did the wall come from? Why is the wall there? And if it ain't there, it's like, how can you have endless space, right? That to me is like, what? It's a lot of mind fuckery, right? So it's like, you know, it's like everything I know has like a beginning and an end. Time has a beginning and an end. Objects have a beginning and an end. You know, matter has a beginning and an end. Everything, you know, cause and effect. And it's like, when we get to the stuff like space is never ending, God is always here, that freaks me out. It's like, how? But, you know, like I said, the reason why I say it is like, imagine you always being here. But the thing about it is, I don't remember before I was born. None of us do. So, what is that about? Was it by design? Like, you know, like, let's say, you know, I wasn't always here, right? The world pretty much didn't exist to me. because I wasn't here or whatever. And so, but was I here in another form? Was I here in another life? Was I reincarnated? Was I in heaven? Was I a conscience before I was alive? And I just forgot. The birth, forgot. And some people remember birth because they have that, the condition where they remember everything. And they say it's a horrible condition to have, to remember every single thing in your life, which I feel like shouldn't, is a little bit over dramatic, but I mean, I could be wrong. I haven't really, remembering their birth is like traumatic or something. I don't know. That's what people say. It's weird. That would be a weird thing to remember, for real. Is to remember you're being born, being a baby. Period. It's like none of us know what it's like to be a baby. It's like, we all like start to think about, maybe 2-3 years old. It's when we really start to have memories that we can still remember. My first memory, and they say your memory is basically the last time you remember that memory. So, but I've always remembered me on the paddle boat at the theme park. Now all I remember is the paddle boat. That's all I remember. Maybe a few other things that kind of vaguely I feel like I used to remember, and I just can't think of it right now. But yeah, me on a paddle boat when I was a kid, and I don't remember much else. It's kind of getting vaguer, but I remember the first apartment, or maybe not the first apartment, but I remember the first apartment in the complex I grew up in, the 1-bedroom before we went to the 2-bedroom, and then the other 2-bedroom that I don't know if they remodeled it or the reason why we got put in another one. But I remember, living in all 3 of those apartments in that complex. And, I remember somebody pushing in my belly button. I was like 3 years old. So I remember a lot of stuff from 3 years. I probably remember more from 3 years old than 4. I could be wrong. Maybe meeting my dad for the first time at the court for child support. I think that was my first. I think that was maybe 4 years old, maybe 3. But yeah, I remember a good amount from like 3, 4, maybe 5. I guess I'm just not sure what age each one was at certain points, or like certain, can't piece together timelines, but I just remember them. But yeah, so I just cut this video off. What do y'all guys think about the concept of consciousness, and like one day you're just like you don't exist, just like imagine that you don't exist anymore. Whether do you believe in the afterlife for that reason? Do you if you're an atheist, do you believe that the end is the end, and it's like that's it, and just life goes on, and you're just not going to be able to witness it, and it's like it basically doesn't exist? Like, how do you, like, just imagine like not existing? Like, I don't know, like what happened? Like what really grinds my gears about it is like, it's like, how? Like, what is anything without being able to witness it? Like, that's all we have. I don't really know how to explain it further, so I guess I cut the video off. But like, I don't know, man. It's just one of those things that's like, I'm trying to figure out. Like, maybe a different perspective on it or something. But I'm just curious if anybody else thinks that way. It's like they kind of get freaked out by their thoughts of like, holy crap, like like when we die, it's like, what is going to happen? It's crazy. And then I've watched videos of near-death experiences where they die and what happens, and some people say they just like become like an orb with other orbs, like basically one of the stars in the solar system, and then you just floating and you feel so good, and you have like just this newborn feeling. Okay, somebody dumped trash in the dumpster. I was like, what the fuck? But yeah, that's all I gotta say, guys. What do you guys think? Do you have anything to add on to what I said? Maybe different points of view, or something I didn't bring up that can freak me out too, you know. What things freak you out, or are you a deep thinker, yada yada yada, you know, just let me know below. Bye.